Dangerfield.
All right there. I wonder if we've lost something that was delicious about obscurity. When I think of my childhood, there's these frequent signposts of some cultural artifact that fascinated me. And when I look back at those various signposts, what connects all of them is a lack of ability to be able to place them, to be able to understand somehow where they came from. Now, I'm talking about when I was like 10 or 11 here. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't one of those weird autist kids who was like reading Descartes when I was like 8 or 9. I didn't start reading properly till I was about 22. Actually making an effort to learn and read. But I did have a problem when I couldn't understand something culturally. I was really tuned in to pop culture, you know, I just was obsessed with television. And, you know, the way I hear people talking about films and their passion for movies and cinema, and I had that for television. I'd just stare at that box and just process, just so much to work on, and just sit. And then there were these objects. A good example of one is my granddad, very funny man. He used to come in my house and he'd go like that and knock me on the top of the head. And I'd, really hurt. And he'd just go, swine. Keep walking through the house. Go straight to the toilet. 10 minutes in there, he'd smoke a couple of senior service cigarettes because I'd find him floating in the toilet when he'd gone and the room would stink. He'd do that, finish his cigarettes, finish his other bit, come out, walk back through the house, bye Janet, I'd say to my mum, and get back in his drunk Jaguar that he'd borrowed that's now halfway up the pavement outside. Owned a pub when my mum was young. She grew up in a pub. And then when he got chucked out there, he got a job in a pub. And then when he lost that job, he became bottle boy. Just let him be around booze. It was his life. But he used to hobnob with all the rich people down in Hartley. And it was kind of weird. And when one of them went on holiday, my granddad borrowed his VHS video recorder. Now, this is massive. This is about 1982. No one I know, no one's got a video player. No one. There's these weird sort of legends that someone at school's got one, and all the like popular girls sit around there at night watching movies about America. But no one else has just even got a whiff of these things. They're kind of legendary status. And he's got it, and the thing's about that big. It's like a microwave. And he had this big sports bags, like one of those cricket bags that you put your gear in, full of videos. Now, I think this was about 82, but Apocalypse Now was in there. Imagine, I'm 10. Apocalypse Now was in there. Quadrophenia was in there. Whew. Exorcist was in there. Mad Max 1 and 2 was in there. What a collection. And of course, well, I say of course, but in view of what I'm telling you, Bruce Lee films were in there. Enter the Dragon was in there. I think, I don't know if it was actually, but Big Boss 2, Fist of Fury. And I'd watch those movies, and you got to remember, this came out of nowhere. There was this, you know, my dad done karate, but I wasn't really at that age too in tune to that part of him. And, you know, you'd see the odd bit on telly, but to watch these, this was the first time all that kung fu had arrived in England. You know, it was an unknown quantity. What the fuck was going on? Some of the films, some of the Bruce Lee films, they were obviously acted in English, but the audio was clearly dubbed on afterwards. These strange production values, you know, through probably lack of money, lack of ability, a mixture of both, lack of aesthetic understanding. They just added to the bizarre nature of the product. You know, it's lovely to see the history of something's production just oozing from it, giving you incomprehensible signs like that. They'd be, oh, you come here for 35 Chinese yen. What's going on? And then all that, I watched them, and as far as I was concerned then, these were 100% historically accurate. Why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't there be these villages in sort of Ming Dynasty China where, they all sat around and life was perfect, but occasionally, because the man next door, I want to take your money, potato. Watching Bruce Lee take on like 30 blokes, he's beautifully choreographed. Watch Fist of Fury. I mean, I know it sounds like a gay porno. Some of these amazing camera scenes above, there's a group of people and they move anti-clockwise and the camera moves clockwise and you're just like, but not knowing where it came from and then following that up, being obsessed with it and not, it was so juicy because it couldn't possibly be anything less than what it appeared, and it appeared amazing. And then there was a magazine called Black Belt magazine. I think it's still going, but I assume it's changed form. In the late 70s, early 80s, and it was late 70s when I was like, my old man would get one, maybe from the karate club up in London town. Or I'd find one like in a dentist or something. And they're these really weird looking blokes. Usually Caucasians, like old white European men, in like these crazy gis. Like I'd done judo as a very young kid, so I knew what a gi was, the suit you get dressed up in. But they had like sort of blue tops with all these badges and, marketing, advertising slogans on them. And they'd be on the covers and they'd be doing like this weird hook thing. And it'd be something like, Sing Tong Chow, death hook touch revealed. And I'd be like, fucking wicked. The idea I've seen Bruce Lee, they might as well have been documentaries, and so the idea that there's a Hing Tong Chu death hook touch that it's in this magazine, it was glowing with energy for me. And then when you open up black and white photos that just, who are these men? Why are there so many moustaches? None of them look like they've ever washed. Really weird. But again, part of it, they didn't have perfect teeth and they weren't like models. These were the blokes that were selling the shit they were talking about. It's just con men jumping on the back of the how do I bandwagon. And you'd get into these things and there'd be like a whole article on ninjas. And this was around the same time there was a few ninja films coming out. American Ninja was one, and these blokes in these black assassin outfits, and they could like run up trees like it was nothing, and little fire bombs, and they could turn around and they could snap your neck with no one could hear because they were, they walked like cats. They practiced walking like cats apparently, and they lived in the shadows. All part of the ninja training. There was many myths hanging up, upside down, suspended above a river for 36 days. All that, just the mythology, and what people were doing. It was school kids that were doing all that. School kids were watching these films. They were seeing the article on ninjutsu, in Black Belt, and they were filling in a history. Because there was a void left, because this stuff had no root. We couldn't, no internet. And this is what I meant at the beginning, if we lost something delicious about obscurity. We filled in that void. And and it wasn't completely made up. You'd look at a few things and it was almost like you're trying to piece together some kind of context. You'd be like, no, well, the ninjas were actually just a certain breed of, a certain class of samurai. Yeah. And again, men with moustaches doing the Ting Chao Ping elbow death salute. Mad classifieds in them, like, people offering ninja stars in the post. And all these books, these endless books on how to disappear on the street. Just what? Smoke bombs for beginners. And of course, as I got older, and MMA really, I kept a torch alive for the martial arts because there's something beautiful about the discipline and the history. But MMA kind of put it to bed as anything to do with fighting. And also the history's bullshit as well. You know, a lot of what we've learned, even when you think you're not romanticising it, or even when you think you're not, you know, indulging in mythologies, you tend to be, you know. All that ninja stuff was just made up. It's just nothing. There's no history to it. It's really odd. You know, people peddled livings out of this for years. But anyway, I digress. My point being, what wonderful times, not knowing where anything came from, not being able to place it and having to be creative to try and understand it. I remember one of the first records I ever bought, and this is when I was young enough to get some record tokens for Christmas off like an auntie I never saw or something. And, you know, my mum would take me into town and just go, you have to buy a record because your nan thought, your nan, rather than giving you cash, she thought she'd limit what you can spend it on to something quite specific as well. Not sure that 8-year-olds are into the recorded medium. Anyway. And so when I was about 10, I remember I bought, what is it, Althea and Donna or something, Uptown Top Ranking. And if I remember rightly, it's like this weird sort of laid back kind of reggae girls thing. It's cool, man. It's a sweet tune to this day. And I think it was on Blue Peter, and me and my brother were cracking up because we'd never seen anything like Rude Girls. You know, she had a little leather hat on, tilted to the side, little heart neck. It's one of the lyrics, see me in me altar back. Oh, see me give you a heart attack. And we were watching it just thinking, what the fuck is this? But that was one of the first singles I bought. And I remember 10 years later, I'd lost it. And I could remember it and no one knew what it was. And there was no internet. And I'd talk about it and all that. And my mate found it in a charity shop based on what I said the cover looked like. And it was a miraculous find. And there were so many tunes like that. And so tunes, pictures, books, comics, movies. And as soon as I got the internet, I tracked them all down. I snuffed out many flames. A positive thing in some respects to gain knowledge on something. But something is sacrificed there for sure. And I just hope that new technologies, in their own accidental way, can manage to create some of them still today, because it would almost be like now there's so much information, things are very disposable. So it might work against itself. There might be a tune or a snippet someone heard on, you know, on a live stream 4 or 5 years ago, and they've got to hunt for that live stream. They're going to give up, and maybe it still goes. And maybe the production values that you had in the Oriental films, it all slowing down and starting up, and the burnt things, all the stuff that Grindhouse aesthetic stole. Coming up next, Bruce Lee, martial arts classic. What the fuck's going on? The digital world in its own way can have its own screw-ups, and maybe memes are part of that, I don't know. It was weird when I got to my last year at school and we were doing computer studies. I think the computers we were using had 1K. Thanks for the lesson, but the hardware is a bit fucked. 1K. And, you know, they'd indoctrinate us with this stuff saying that computers are going to mean people do less work. And I remember thinking, wicked. That's all right, because mum and dad work. And if they do less, because they don't seem too happy about it, so if they do less, that'll be all right. But what we actually saw was computers made people more efficient. So they got more work done in less time, meaning they've got more time for more work. So, you know, it would be strange if things like obscurity have been sacrificed.